So we're going to go ahead and get started this morning. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I am very excited to be hosting my first webinar on mindfulness for busy professionals. So I want to keep with the idea of, I did put the word busy in the title with the anticipation that I want to keep this to 30 minutes because I get frustrated when people go, I know how busy you are. I just need an hour, which takes a really long time. So we're going to keep this focused. I'm going to share here in a minute what our layout is for the day and look forward to hopefully having you all participate, share some things in chat, and just walk away today with, if you know about mindfulness, maybe learn something new or see something differently. And if you don't know about mindfulness, hopefully this is an introduction to something you want to keep exploring and learning about. So if you can share in the chat, if you're here in Pittsburgh and if you feel comfortable who you work with and what you think about mindfulness. And I will try to incorporate some other things and try to keep an eye on the chat while also trying to keep our session moving so not to hold you back. So this is a passion of mine, mindfulness, because for those of you who know me, I am probably similar to many of you can relate to. I am a type A hyperachiever, trying to get things done type of person, and can find a way to stress myself out. And I've spent years trying to find ways to live in the chaos without it living inside of me. And that's why this is so important for me to share with others. So what you can expect for today is, this is a practical understanding of mindfulness. There will be reasons we all need to be mindful and what it can offer us and what it can give us. There are ways to be mindful anywhere at any time. And that's why I want to grow. I've been hoping to grow the idea of mindfulness because sometimes we can have a very limited view of what that can be. And then also, how does this help you at work? When you are engaging with your peers, when you're doing work on your own, how can being mindful be supportive? So, and what today isn't. This isn't a deep theoretical understanding of mindfulness. My hope is after you learn about this, you want to learn more. You want to read some things by whether it's Jon Kabat-Zinn, who has done work on mindfulness, or Thich Nhat Hanh, or a lot of other people. But today we're keeping it very practical. What does it look like? How can I use this? And this is more of a jumping off point for mindfulness than digging down real deep. It's some ways to start to get you engaged with the process. We're not going to be sitting in an extended quiet meditation. For today, we will do some practices, but they're things that you can use at any time, whether you're sitting in a meeting, whether you're talking with a coworker, or you get that email that just drives you crazy. It's something you can do in 30 seconds or a minute. And hopefully today isn't a one and done. This isn't your first engagement with mindfulness and that you're going to move on and say, oh, that was nice. I felt good for a couple of minutes, but I'm too busy to do this. My hope is that this shows you is none of us are too busy to do it. And it gives us so much more back to our focus, to our being effective when we are engaging with this. And if at any time you have a question, we have a small enough group, please don't hesitate to stop me. So the question I have is, what is mindful? Is your mind full? Are you being mindful? So I'm going to put a poll up real quick just to see and you can pick more than one because it can be as many things as you think of. So please go ahead and pick one or all, or what you think mindfulness is to you. Thank you. Awesome. And thank you for your quick response. So it was great. I'm going to go ahead and end it, but I'm excited to see that no one put overly used trendy term, because mindfulness can become that. And I'm going to share the results with all of you. So as you can see, a lot were right within the same idea, being physical, not just physically present. We're all in many places physically. The question is, where are we mentally? If you think about it, how many times have we driven to work and you remember getting in your car, you know you got to work, but that in between piece, you may or may not remember. Being aware of your body and your thoughts. Until I started engaging with mindfulness, I never felt the chair I was sitting on, which that was one of the biggest things that stood out to me, is that you can actually feel the chair you're sitting in when you pay attention to it, or you can actually feel the floor underneath your feet when you recognize it. So many times we're on autopilot moving through life. Choosing your responses to thoughts. Our thoughts are constantly, our brain is always active, always firing. But how we engage with that, what we let stay, what we let go, and how we engage with those is also us being mindful. And then engaging with life instead of avoiding it. We can often, again, autopilot. We can often go through life and just keep going and not paying attention to it, but it allows us to engage with life. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. So. And mindfulness is all of those things that we just talked about. And as Kabat-Zinn put it, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. And that's one of the things I love about mindfulness. A big part of it is we can't stop the chaos around us. We can't stop a frustrating situation in a meeting. We can't stop someone else's actions, and someone who sends us a nasty email that just isn't accurate, but gets us all worked up. But what we can learn to do is we can just choose what our responses are. We can choose where we want to go with this. So you can't stop the world from happening. You can't stop other people's actions, but you can find a way to live within there. So why do you need mindfulness? What does it offer you and what does it give? There's a lot of things, but some of the major ones that stood out to me are, one, it gives you resilience. Resiliency is our ability to bounce back. We have a hard day, we are frustrated, and then all of a sudden our day just goes downhill from there. We wake up thinking we're going to take on the world, and by 9 o'clock, we've gotten 4 emails that have frustrated us and interacted with someone who is demanding something that is somewhat unreasonable. And now we allow ourselves to start feeling beat down. We don't want to do anything. And now the weight of the world is on us. But with resilience, we can take all of that in. We can process it by being mindful and not just giving into our feelings. And we can bounce back. And that's one of the things I love. I heard a teacher talking about mindfulness, and they said it's not perfect. We would love if a negative thought or a feeling came and in 1 second we could switch our thinking. Ideally, within 1 second, but really it's what used to take us days now takes us hours to get over, and what used to take us hours now takes us minutes to deal with, versus letting something eat us up. So our resilience helps us to bounce back faster. Stress management. When we're letting everything build up, and when we're letting everything control us, and when we're letting our thoughts and our feelings really push us, it's very difficult to manage our stress. Which affects us physically, it affects us mentally, it affects our health. So we can start to engage with that. Again, does it stop everything? No. But how we respond can also give us a greater level of ability to not let it eat us alive, and to be able to engage with what our thinking is, decide how we want to respond. And it helps us avoid burnout. If we can't bounce back and we keep letting things beat us down, and we can't manage our stress, which is eating us alive from the inside out, we become burnt out. And even with jobs we love, we become burnt out. It becomes difficult. So we want to also allow these things to not pile up to lead us down that path. And let's just be honest, we just want to feel better. I mean, I haven't met anybody who said, nope, I love feeling horrible. I want to feel bad all the time. Please let me feel yucky. And we want to feel better. We don't want to walk around with a weight on us. And mindfulness taking a step back as to what is mindfulness, mindfulness helps us engage with all of these things. One of my favorite things I ever read about was if you stop and think for a moment, and this will help sum up some of what mindfulness is. If you stop and think for a moment and picture yourself walking down the street, and you see one of your best and most dearest friends walking on the other side of the street, and you start waving like crazy and yelling to her or him, and they just keep walking. What happens next is going to be what you decide to mindfully do. What's the next part of the story that you tell yourself? So your dearest friend just walked by and ignored you. So the question you ask yourself is, well, what's your next thinking? Some of us, our next thinking is, oh my gosh, she must be mad at me, or he must be mad at me. I don't remember what happened. I must have said something. And by the end of this whole thought process that just took over your mind, you now have lost your dearest friend. You're a horrible person, and you're never going to figure out, and that he or she's never going to talk to you again if we just let our minds take over. We could also stop and say, well, maybe they didn't see me. Maybe they didn't have their glasses on. Maybe they were in their own thoughts. I'll check with them later and see how they're doing. One took us down a spiral of all of the what ifs and all of the horrible feelings and dragged us down with it, which now caused stress and horrible feelings. But on the other side, when we just take a moment and stop, give ourselves a second of space, not let us become consumed, we were able to be mindful and say, I'll check in with that and I'll see what's going on before I let this take me over. So I hope that gives a little bit of a greater interaction with it. It's those stories we tell ourselves. It's allowing our emotions and our thoughts just to run rampant, which is what we hope we can create some space. So what now? So I need space. I get that. So I need to be able to engage with my thinking. I need to be self-aware. I need to be able to have some room. But how do I get it? Because there are 1,000 things coming at me every day, and it just sounds like a lot of work. So my favorite part of mindfulness is sometimes we can get caught up in the idea that mindfulness is sitting on a cushion for 5, 10, 20, 30 minutes meditating. And then when I walk away from that very comfortable place first thing in the morning and I move on to something else, I kind of leave that mindfulness in that room, hoping it'll stay, but it may or may not, depending upon who I run into. And you don't need a lot of time. You can be mindful in 30 seconds, if that's all you have. You can be mindful while facing someone that you're talking to in a meeting where you're losing your mind internally. So how can you do that? Well, one are using focus points. A lot of times the breath is the most common focus point. We take 3 deep breaths in. You can use what's called box breathing, where you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, let out for 4, hold for 4, and breathe in again. And you can do that. And the breath is an awesome way to do that. 3 big deep breaths can help with that. It can also be taking some time just to recognize your breathing. Sometimes we're breathing and don't even realize it, but breathing isn't always for everyone. One time I tried this. I used the app on my watch and I was going into a doctor's appointment and I wanted to get my blood pressure down and tried to calm myself. And I thought, I'll use the app. It'll bring my blood pressure down. And I started doing the breathing. And actually it raised my heart rate because I was freaking myself out trying to use it to calm myself down. And it had the opposite effect. Just in that case, because I use it most of the time, but it doesn't work for everyone. And sometimes with people who have trauma, it's been found that the breath can actually trigger some things. So there are other focal points if the breath isn't what works for you. You can use your body. So just taking a moment and scanning how your body feels. I never noticed until I started doing this that sometimes there's tingling on the top of my head. Who would think my top of my head would tingle? It would, and then you can feel your arms, you can feel your feet on the floor. You can feel the back of your legs and your back against a chair. And you can also use your senses. And we're going to practice this here in a moment, but you can just stop and listen to sound. You don't have to figure out what the sound is. You can think of your ears as kind of like a window, and the sound comes in, you hear it. You don't have to engage with it, try to figure out what it is. Just hear it and let it go on. Or you might smell your tea or your coffee and just enjoy it. I know on the call, on the recording today is someone who, Cassandra, who does great things with tea and the smell of it and how it can just help you in that moment, or the smell of your coffee, or the smell of your lunch before you start eating it, or how it feels in your mouth, or how a soft blanket feels when you put it on, or the feeling of, one of my favorites is when my little one puts his hand in mine and I can hold his hand, and it's so tiny right this second and won't be for much longer. I know that. But any of your senses, your smell. I love how the spring smells. And I've been trying to get my little one to smell outside and see how it feels. And I was really excited a couple of days ago. He opened the door after the rain and he stood at the door and I said, "We're not going outside. It's wet. What are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, Mommy, it smells so good." And I was like, "Oh, you realized it." And he will stop and do that. And even looking, I love when I take the dog out at night just to stare up at the sky. See it when you're walking to your car. See it out your window. All of those things can bring you back. Movement is another really great one for getting you back. It can be taking a brief walk, which is good for your health, but it's also good for you to be mindful. You can decide, well, I'm going to go for a walk, but I'm going to see what I hear along the way. Feel your feet on the pavement. Are they fast? Do you step really hard? Which I never realized I did until I was a principal and the kids knew when I was coming. And then when I wore tennis shoes, they said I was cheating because they couldn't hear me coming then. But you can feel your feet. And is it a fast pace, a slow pace? Just get yourself moving. Stretching, just taking a few moments and stretching your legs out, stretching your arms out, and just feeling how good that stretch feels. Even just rubbing your hands and really feeling how that feels. And standing. You can stand, you can feel the weight of your body, your feet on the floor, but it takes you away from being so in autopilot that you come back to the moment. And mental awareness. Mental awareness is a big one. So you want to engage with your thoughts. What's going through your head and where's it going? So again, like I said, you saw that friend going down the street. Did your mind start down the what if path and all of the different possibilities? And instead of you catching them and saying, hold on, I don't know what's going on here, I'm going to let that thought float off for a moment and just go with what I know. My friend didn't see me. We'll find out why later. And this is one of the biggest things, mental awareness. Was a really big one for me with mindfulness. And mindfulness is a muscle. I've been many of these things I'm sharing with you, I've been working on for multiple years. And you can't do this one time and go, oh, it didn't work, which sometimes people tend to do. But what I learned, and you don't realize it's working till you realize it's working, which I know that sounds a little off. But I was at work one day, opened my email box, and there was an email sitting there. I used to do human resources before I became a coach. And I was sitting there and I read the email, and it was someone talking to me about filing a grievance. And I could feel the rising coming in. I could feel it coming from my stomach into my throat, the dread, the fear. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do now? And I felt my hand going for the phone to pick up the phone, and I was going to fix this right now. And as my hand was going for the phone, I paused. It was probably 5 seconds at most, but I paused, excuse me, and I thought, wait a minute. They just said there might be a problem. Didn't say there is a problem. Didn't say there was no grievance attached. There was all of these things. But I started to go to my default response, which was, I'm going to fix this now and I want to get it done, because I thought that would take away that horrible feeling that was coming up through my body and the idea that the rest of my day was going to be ruined. And stopping for a second, I was able to clearly look at all of the facts of the moment and say, right now, I don't have to do anything. And jumping to do this isn't going to make a difference for me or for the person or for the situation. And it could actually make it worse because now I'm just trying to fix it so I don't feel bad. And I actually felt better pulling my hand back. I put the email and I thought, okay, I'll wait to see what the follow-up is. And I was able to decide. I didn't go down the what if rabbit hole. I didn't start seeing all these horrible things. I didn't start beating myself up. I was able to catch myself. And in that moment, I realized, hey, this actually works. This is awesome. Catching our feelings when we're that person who walks near us and instantly makes us angry, maybe catching that and saying, what is it about them that makes me annoyed every time they come near me? And then the internal talk. How are we talking to ourselves? I think one of the biggest things is we often talk about is what we say to ourselves inside, we would never say to a friend. If your friend gets dumped by someone, you're not going to go, oh yeah, I get why he dumped you. You are boring and annoying and you look horrible when you do your hair and all these things. We would never say that to our dearest friend who's sitting there crying because someone left them. And we shouldn't tell ourselves that. But if we can catch those and figure out what's causing that talk, is it one of our internal saboteurs? Is it a feeling? Is it a fear? What is this? And engage with those, but be self-aware. And having gratitude. Gratitude is a huge, huge part of, and it's not just, well, you should be thankful for everything you have. I agree with that, but sometimes that doesn't always help. But being in a place of gratitude can also be thankfulness in the morning before you get out of bed, thinking of even one thing you're thankful for. And one often leads to two, and two often leads to three, which is great. At the end of the night, and when your mind's reeling, find one good thing that happened that day and be thankful. And it can be the big things, and they can be always the go-to. I'm grateful for this bed I'm laying in, the house, my dog. But it can also be appreciation for the barista who just gave you your coffee, that she showed up that day to make it and was nice while she spoke with you. Appreciation for a coworker who grabbed something off the copier for us that we didn't have to get up and go get it. And it's also, I was doing a meditation the other day, and it came through, I'm a big fan of the Calm app, and it came through and it was just a little YouTube video, and it said, a big part of gratitude is just recognizing things, recognizing a sunrise, recognizing a cool breeze on your face, recognizing the taste of an awesome lunch. And it's just recognizing those things too, because so many times we inhale our food and run to the next thing. So it all comes with, that's all gratitude, but there's a lot of different ways to approach gratitude also. And if you have other ideas of how you found ways to be mindful, please share them in the chat. We learn from each other. We learn from what others think and how they find gratitude. So we're going to take a brief moment, and we're going to try a pretty standard way of being mindful, but some of you may be familiar with it. Some of you may not. It's the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. And the picture of the beach really stood out to me because all of these methods could really be helpful if you're sitting on the sand. And it's not hard to be mindful when you're sitting at the water's edge, at least not for me. However, unfortunately, I'm not that close to the beach yet. So I have to find other ways to do that. So just take a moment and sit in your seat. Or if you're walking or you're driving or however you're listening to this. And you can do this anywhere at any time, and you can use your hand if it helps you remember. So what we're going to do is you're going to take a moment and look around where you are and actually see 5 things and look at them for a moment. See the color, see the texture. And then you're going to feel 4 things. It could be the chair you're sitting in, your feet on the floor, your clothes on your body, your hands on your desk or your mouse, or if you're driving on your steering wheel. You're going to feel all of those things and really feel them. Are they soft? Are they hard? Are they bumpy? And then you're going to listen for 3 things, or maybe nothing, but it could be a low hum, could be people talking in the distance. I just heard a bird outside my window, which was really awesome as soon as I said it. It could be birds. Now you're going to see if you can smell 2 things. Maybe it's your lunch or your coffee. Or if you have a diffuser in your office, or the soap you just used to wash your hands. Really smell them. And you're going to taste one thing. Maybe there's no taste, but maybe you're eating something and you can taste it. Maybe you have gum and you can taste the mint of that. So this is a quick, easy way to be mindful and to bring yourself, we say bring ourselves back to the present moment, but it's really to bring ourselves back to awareness. I was thinking about this one time and I thought, we always tell people be in the moment, come back to the moment. Sometimes the moment isn't ideal and maybe we don't want to be in it, and that's okay, but it's how we engage with it. It's not just being in the moment. I can be there, but it's awareness is how I like to look at it, is you're aware of your surroundings. You're aware of the people you're with. You're aware of everything that's happening. And awareness is in addition to, you want to be present, but you really want to be aware of your thinking, of your body, of what's happening around you. And if you're in a meeting and you're getting very frustrated and you can feel yourself, or you can feel yourself drifting off, you can even pick just one of these we did. You can do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You can do the whole thing, and hopefully it will help lower, any stress or anything that's coming. But you can also do just one. Just look around the room and see 5 things, and that brings back your awareness to where you are. So often I've been reading, or when I talk with people, there's a misconception that mindfulness is meditation. So do you have to meditate to be mindful? The simple answer is no. Meditation isn't for everyone. I'm a big fan of it. I meditate each morning, anywhere from 2 to 20 minutes if I have the time. But that's because it works for me and it's something that I've found. But it isn't for everyone. Some people don't like the stillness of it, and you can meditate in a variety of ways. Can meditation support mindfulness? It absolutely does. It can help grow various areas of the brain and increase areas that help with mental awareness or focus. And it does support brain health and physical health. And more and more studies are showing that. But to be mindful, you don't have to meditate. You can, and it brings a lot of benefits. But what we just did with the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is being mindful, is bringing ourselves back to awareness. So do you have to know? Is it helpful? And you might want to give it a try just to see if you like it? Absolutely. So how can this help you at work? It can help with decision making. If you can bring yourself back to awareness, engage with your thoughts, engage with your feelings, you can move from being in a place of reactivity, where fear is driving your decisions, or concern or worry, and hurry up, and we have to make this decision, and let's just do this, to being intentional, Even a 5-second space stopped me from getting on a phone call that may have not made things better. So it can help with your decision making because you become intentional and you stop and think and you stop and engage with what your thoughts are, what the situation is. And like I said, even 5 seconds, you don't have to be an overthinker like some of us, but it gives you a moment. It can help with relationships. If you can be aware of your thinking, then you're not going into autopilot that when your coworker's talking to you and you're just thinking about what your answer is going to be back to them. You're truly listening and people feel heard. You can also develop empathy towards someone or compassion, or they can tell that you're present with them and hearing them. It can help with communication. Again, that deep listening. You can also think through how you want to respond, or even be aware enough to say, you know what, can I have a moment to think about that? Or can I get back to you instead of just jumping to give something? And it can also help us as leaders. And when I say leaders, I don't think of just people who have the title of leaders. Everyone's a leader in some way, whether they're guiding peers or they're helping with a project. Even if someone doesn't have that title, they still act as a leader. And a big part of leading is modeling. So if you can model intentional response, you can model vulnerability of being able to share that you don't know something in the moment, or being able to share that you need to think about something, or being able to share that you need to calm yourself too. It can help you be a stronger leader. And it helps other people to see how they can be similar to you and how you engage. And if you have other ways that this can help at work, please share those. There's always ways where I'm not thinking of, and we, like I said before, we learn best from each other. So another quote that really stood out to me was mindfulness means being awake. It means knowing what you're doing. Again, it goes back to mindfulness means turning off our autopilot and actually being aware of how we're engaging and what we're doing. So mindfulness isn't a one and done, or at least my hope is it's not. It's every moment of every day. And it helps us cut the time it takes us to deal with life situations. So where we think mindfulness takes so much time, and it is work, not going to say it's not. We have to grow that muscle. We have to grow those reactions of giving ourselves space and time. But when we can give ourselves that space, we can also bring back some more time that we don't spend days perseverating or ruminating on something that someone else said to us, or horrible feelings that have come up. We can actually spend the time engaging with it, deciding how we want to go, making ourselves feel better and not worse. And it takes us from maybe something that used to take us 3 days to get over, now takes us a day. Something that used to take us hours to get past in the evening takes us a half hour now in the middle of the day, or hopefully even shorter than that. So I really appreciate everyone joining me today to learn about mindfulness, to engage with it, to see if it's something that could be beneficial to you. And I apologize, I did go over by just a few moments because I didn't want to rush. But there's a lot of other ways to stay mindful. So I will put in the chat if you'd like to continue your mindfulness and sign up for the emails that I send out. I will send you a mindfulness reminder each day, or you can join me on LinkedIn every Thursday, and I post a mindfulness moment where it's just something simple you can do. The one I posted last week was just to look at the sky and see what's happening up there. But if you want to keep going and keep feeling better, I can send this out to you. I will also share this link with you if you want to go back and revisit. And you can share this with your team. You can share this with others and help them to learn about mindfulness. I can come in and help you with that support to bring mindfulness and mindset and mental fitness to your team and help them to feel better so that you all are on the same page and you learn how to communicate and be more effective and focused with each other. And then sometimes we want to grow these things personally. And sometimes it's really helpful for us to be able to do that and to engage with someone one-on-one And I am very blessed and excited that I have worked to learn about this and to be able to share that you don't have to spend all the years I did trying to figure out how to do this, to be able to help people personally grow their mindset and grow their mindfulness practices. So I am here to support you and help you and guide you on this journey too, and would love to support anyone who's looking for that. So again, thank you all so much today. Just some upcoming dates if you want to. I'm gonna take mindfulness and keep growing it to help you and dive into mental fitness over the next couple of months and catching that negative self-talk. So these are the dates, and if I can help you or anything like that, please feel free to reach out to me through LinkedIn, through my website. So I hope everyone stays well. I hope we stay connected so we can keep growing in our mindfulness to live our full potential. And I just appreciate you all being here with me today. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I hope you all have a great rest of the day.